Welcome back. I'm Mr. Smith, and I'll be reading the Superteacher Project, chapter 16 and 17 today. Last chapter, what did we do? We got from Stinky Newhouse. We heard from him. He's explaining the new state of detention, how it's no longer like really a punishment anymore. People want to be there. Um, and then he goes back and he witnesses Mr. Adak coming to the defense of Daryl, who is kind of like Stinky's bully in a sense. And we watch how Daryl's dad just keeps beating him down, yelling at him about basketball. And then Mr. Adak comes to his defense. So we witness that. So this chapter, chapter 16, is about Oliver Zahn. Sitting in detention gives a guy some time to think. And sitting in detention with Mr. Adak gives a guy a lot to think about. I mean, why are we here? I whispered to Nathan, who's serving detention at the desk next to me. Why? He practically does a spit take. Have you forgotten that little business about the big wheel? Or the costume change that was supposed to be foolproof? It was foolproof, I insist, keeping my voice low. I'd bet my reputation as a rule wrecker on it. Could one teacher in 1,000 have identified my Batman suit from a single tiny thread? Could one in a million? Too bad Mr. Adak is one in a billion, he says bitterly and loudly. I nod. He's been all over me since that first spitball of the year. And the stunt with the toy cars? Not only did he figure it out, but he instantly knew who to pin it on. Nathan shrugs. It was only a matter of time before a teacher came along who had your number. I fold my arms in front of my chest. I refuse to believe it. There's something off about that guy. He knows things that are impossible. He's unreal, Nathan agrees. There's nothing we can do about it. Typical Nathan. I love the kid, but he's so happy just to drift along like a twig floating downstream. He doesn't care whether he controls his own destiny or not. He probably doesn't even think about it. Lucky for him, he's got me as his best friend. There is always something you can do about it, Nathan. A Google search for the name Adak churns up over 300,000 hits, and not a single one of them is a person. Really? Nathan says. Everyone's on the internet. Not Mr. Adak. I conclude this by sifting through all the pages of the links from my computer. And I guess he doesn't have any relatives either. Our investigation begins right after school on the floor of my room. Obviously, I can't go through all 300,000, but the hits are mostly just government things like bills and laws, something called Aid Act. Really boring stuff. Maybe you should try to find his address, Nathan suggests. He might not be on Google, but everyone lives somewhere. Not Mr. Adak. According to the online directory, there's no one by that name in our town, state, or country. We try a few other internet resources with the same luck. Ditto on all the major social media sites. We even look in the old fashioned phone book that my dad keeps around, but not a single Adak. I'm starting to get frustrated. What's the deal with this guy? It's like he doesn't even exist. Oh, he exists, all right, Nathan says grimly. Seems to me we've been serving a lot of detentions thanks to somebody and his boomer student teacher. That's it. Perkins. He drives Mr. Adak to school every day. He must drive him back home again. If we can find out where Perkins lives, then we can ride there on our bikes in the morning and follow him when he goes to pick up Mr. Adak. What if he commutes from 40 miles away? Nathan challenges. One way to find out. Googling Perkins presented the opposite problem. If there were no Adaks, there were too many Perkins. We do searches on everybody, ruling people out one by one, until we find the student teacher, Paul Perkins, 1342 Larch Street, a small apartment complex about half a mile from school. We put our plan into action the very next morning. My mother seemed pretty suspicious when she caught me slipping my bike out of the garage at 7:30. But Nathan and I just said, "We're heading in to work early on a project." Her eyes narrowed. What happened to being in school more than 5 seconds before the late bell is a waste of precious youth. I hate it when my mom uses my brilliance against me. That was a sixth grade thing, I tell her. I'm way more mature now. Education is important. The look on her face plainly says she isn't buying that load of crap, but she doesn't stop me as I ride off. I'm joined by Nathan at the corner, and we pedal away together for a large street. We stash our bikes on the edge of the complex and we continue on foot. How do we know when the apartment is his? Nathan asks. Simple. Takes a few seconds to locate the white Prius. It's parked in space 23, which is a short walk away from a bright green door bearing the exact same number. Right here. At that very moment, the door starts to open. We hurriedly duck into some bushes and wait for Perkins to emerge. And someone does show up, but it's not Mr. Perkins. It's Mr. Adak. Nathan's brow furrows. If Mr. Adak lives here, he whispers, how come the place is under Perkins' name? Don't know. From our spot in the bushes, we can see into the apartment and down the hall, and we watch, transfixed, as the door opens and out steps another figure from the near of the two bedrooms. Skinny, slight, pale, lugging a large briefcase. Perkins. They're roommates. The two teachers lock the apartment behind them. They get into the Prius and they drive off in the direction of school. We stay in the bushes for a few minutes after they leave, but my mind is racing. Okay. I did not see this coming. But it sort of makes sense, Nathan reasons. Student teachers don't get paid. Maybe Perkins is bunking with Mr. Adak to save some money. Maybe. Except that it's Perkins' apartment. So it's not Perkins bunking with Adak. It's the other way around. You know what's under Adak's name? Nothing. Not even Mr. Adak. Calm down, Nathan soothes as we head over to where we stashed out the bikes. We wanted to know where Mr. Adak lives, and now we do. It isn't what we expected, but at least this is over. Oh no, it is just starting, I say. We're going to get to the bottom of this if it's the last thing that we do. Nathan grimaces. I hate it when you use that word. I pick my bike up off the grass. What word? We. At school, whenever I see Mr. Adak and Mr. Perkins, my brain threatens to boil over. In homeroom, in algebra, in the cafeteria. Mr. Adak is on lunch duty there, and at 3:30 in detention I see him again. My mind is working double speed, sifting through all the information that I have about Brightling's staff newbie and his middle-aged student teacher. Perkins never lets Adak out of his sight. When Adak runs field hockey practice, Perkins is watching from the window of the detention room, always taking notes for some reason. Perkins eats his lunch, but Adak always skips it. Adak is never seen with so much as water or even a cup of coffee. The two live together, arrive together, and leave together, and Perkins always drives. The apartment and the car belong to Perkins. The name Adak appears nowhere, not even on a list of faculty on our school's website. Considering that he's a student teacher, Perkins has not taught a single lesson. Or even, spoken an entire word to the entire class. But what does this all mean? Wild ideas flash around my head. Each one provides a partial explanation, but nothing whole. What if Mr. Adak is the real student teacher, and this boomer is his supervisor? Their ages would make sense then, and so would their behavior. Adak doing all the teaching and Perkins only taking notes. But if that's true, why bother telling everyone the opposite? Why would Mr. Adak be the only student teacher at Brightling who needed an outside supervisor? If Perkins isn't the student teacher, then what is he? The chauffeur? Why would a middle school teacher have a chauffeur? How could they afford one? Could there be more to this? Maybe Perkins is his bodyguard. But why would a teacher need one of those? What's he afraid of? Unless Mr. Adak isn't a teacher at all. Maybe he's some exiled prince from this tiny obscure country where Adak is such a common name, like Smith or Jones even. Only that doesn't answer the biggest question of all. What self respecting prince would move into a dinky little apartment and decide to teach 7th grade? After school, Nathan and I bike back together to my house. I get the impression that he wants to drop our investigation, at least for now. And it has been a long day, and I'm kind of tired too. But there is no way that I'm just going to let this slide. Not even another hour. If we don't get some answers pronto, then I'm not going to be able to live with myself. Nathan waits outside while I go into the garage and rifle through a box of my old stuff. And there it is, under Thomas the Tank Engine and the Lincoln Logs, my periscope. I never really found a use for it except to spy on the high shelves where I was finding Mom hiding all the Christmas presents. I think I got it when I was about 6. Who would have predicted that it would finally come in handy after all of these years? You have got to be kidding me, Nathan tells me. I get it. The periscope is bright blue and made of plastic, and there's some sticker all the way up the length that says Submarine Commander. There's also a picture of this clear-eyed naval officer in the crosshairs of the circle. So it's babyish, so what? Would you rather get caught with your big nose pressed up against Mr. Adak's window? Just don't drop it, Nathan says as we climb back onto our bikes. At 1342 Larch Street, we replay our actions from this morning. We stash our bikes and we hide in the bushes opposite apartment 23. There's only one problem. The Prius isn't parked in the spot this time. We'll wait. But what if they went to go see a movie, Nathan complains. What if they're driving all the way to Atlanta to visit dear old Aunt Adak? There is no Aunt Adak, I reason. Otherwise, she would have turned up in our Google search. Maybe field hockey practice ran late today? It's really only about 20 minutes that we wait, but when you're crouched in the bushes, getting scratched by branches and brambles, and listening to your best friend complaining 24/7, it feels like an eternity. Finally, the white Prius pulls into space 23 and the 2 teachers get out. Mr. Adak is carrying 5 big grocery bags. Meanwhile, Perkins is just carrying his briefcase. Considering they're together every minute, Nathan whispers, they never really seem to talk to each other. I wait for them to enter the apartment, and then I count to 10, and I climb out of the bushes, hauling Nathan behind me. We drop to the grass and stay low, slither up to the big picture window. The curtains are closed, but there's a gap of about 3 inches in the middle. This is an ideal vulnerability to be exposed by a submarine commander periscope. Carefully, I telescope the top of the toy above the window ledge, and I take my first look inside. This thing works perfectly. Okay, the mirror's a little dusty, but I can see almost everything. The living room has a fireplace, and across the mantel is a collection of chia pets in various stages of sprouting. There's a pass-through to the kitchen where Mr. Adak is now wearing a t-shirt and is unloading tins of soup. For some reason, he has 3 cans of WD-40 oil. Like the stuff my dad uses on the door to make it stop squeaking. I've never looked into a teacher's house before, but I definitely wasn't expecting this. I mean, how many squeaky doors do they have? When he finished putting away the groceries, Mr. Adak steps out into the living room and stands there, motionless. Where's his roommate? What's happening? Nathan whispers. Nothing. How could it be nothing? I squirm aside to give him a turn on the periscope. You're right. It is nothing, he finally says. Why is he just standing there? Doesn't Mr. Adak, sit down or anything? I shrug. I take back the viewing spot, and I watch somebody I shrug and take back the viewing spot. Watching somebody who doesn't move a muscle, doesn't even blink, is exhausting for some reason. And what's weird, that doesn't even begin to explain it. I'm almost ready to scream when Mr. Perkins finally walks into the room and sets his briefcase down on the coffee table. He circles the unmoving Mr. Adak, looking him over like a customer inspecting a used car. He brushes some lint off Mr. Adak's shoulders and nods to himself. Then he bends down, opens the case, and takes out a tool. This is my first glimpse inside that famous briefcase. And whatever I was expecting to find in there, that's not it. It's like a toolbox. There are so many more tools in there. Is he a doctor? Like, he's Mr. Adak's personal physician? My mind just can't get a grip on this. I come back to the exiled prince theory, but then Mr. Perkins takes out another instrument, and there's no question about it. It's a precision wrench. Like a small one for like watches and stuff. What's that for, I wonder? What's he fixing? And before the thought has fully formed in my mind, I have an answer. Mr. Perkins reaches out and he sticks the wrench right into the underside of Mr. Adak's forearm. I wait for Mr. Adak to cry or yell or pull away, but he's still there, still as a statue. And if that sounds crazy, keep your seatbelts on because it just gets worse from here. With his thumb and forefinger, Perkins is twisting the tiny wrench, and Mr. Adak's left forearm pops open like a lunchbox. It's hanging on a hinge. But what's inside the arm? Not blood, not bones or tissue or anything like that. It looks like a computer. Like wires and circuits, silicone chips everywhere. And I watch with my spine frozen like a column of ice. Here, Perkins selects another instrument that looks like a dental pick and begins making adjustments to the machinery inside of Mr. Adak's arm. Nathan is tugging on my jacket. What is it? What do you see? Wordlessly, I let him take my place at the viewfinder. He watches for a few seconds and then he pulls away with his eyes as wide as dinner plates. A fake arm? Artificial intelligence? I guess so. But I get back to the periscope just in time to see Perkins open up another forearm. Make that 2 artificial arms, I murmur. No. But it doesn't end there. Mr. Adak rolls up his pant leg, and then the little wrench unlocks a panel that covers the entire left calf. More electronics, more machinery, more wires. I move aside. Here, look at it. Nathan shakes his head. I can't. I don't want to. But next comes a small panel in his stomach, followed by one on the back of the neck. Perkins works delicately and deliberately with several different tools, fiddling, tightening, making small adjustments. An air purifier clears away dust particles. Every moving panel gets a small spritz of WD-40 before he closes it up again. And finally, Perkins connects a laptop computer to the left shoulder blade. A timing wheel whirls on the screen as a progress indicator rises up to 100%. Even in this cool afternoon, I find myself sweating like a hog. Droplets of perspiration are stinging my eyes, but I can't look away from what's happening inside apartment 23. Reluctantly, Nathan takes another peek into the viewfinder, and he comes away, his head shaking. What does it mean? There's only one answer to that, but forcing the words out of my mouth causes genuine physical pain. Genuine physical pain. Our teacher isn't human. Chapter 17. Nathan Popova. This isn't happening! My Oliver alert is uninterrupted with ear-splitting screeches, but this goes far beyond my partner in crime just getting me into trouble. I woke up this morning a normal kid, and now look at what you made me see. In an answer to this, Oliver pulls the periscope out of the window and flattens both of us to the ground. Lying there, my cheek pressed into an anthill, I peer up out of the corner of my eye just in time to see Perkins gazing out the gap of the curtains. All he has to do is look down. There we are. A fat little ant crawls up my cheek, but I don't dare move. I'm be afraid of attracting the attention of our student teacher. At such a close range, the little ant looks like a giant alien. Why? Why did I let Oliver drag me into this? Perkins stands there for what seems like an impossibly long time, and then he pulls the curtains completely closed. Oliver and I don't wait for an engraved invitation. We scramble away so fast, we forget the periscope. Oliver has to crawl back to get it. If Mr. Adak can identify a Batman suit from a single thread, he could probably sequence our DNA just from the viewfinder of the toy. He. That pronoun sticks in my head. Is Mr. Adak a he? Last time I checked, it looked like he was some kind of machine. We sprint all the way to our bikes, jump on and pedal away top speed. You know, you you know in spy movies, I pan over to Oliver, where they talk about information being a need to know basis. Well, that was something I never needed to know. Even Oliver seems kind of shaken. I get it, man. I get it. I've had some pretty weird ideas about Mr. Adak, but this is the last thing that I would have thought. We pedal as if we don't know or care where we're going. As long as we get away from 1342 Larch Street, it's enough for us. You can't keep riding forever, though. So eventually, I fall behind Oliver and I let him take the lead. It's my fatal flaw, following him. I complain about the stuff he gets me into, but it's my own fault. I have my own Oliver alert, but what good does that do me? I hear it, I get stressed out, but I never heed its warnings. When it comes to Oliver, I go where I'm dragged. In this case, I'm dragging it to my very own house because your Wi-Fi is faster than mine, Oliver says. What's Wi-Fi got to do with the fact that our teacher has circuits instead of guts? The first time we Googled Adact, we were looking for a person, Oliver says, leaning his bike against the side of my garage. We haven't seen, you know, you know what we just saw. Which is what exactly? Because if you tell me, we'll both know. That's what research is for, he reasons. We can't be sure of anything yet, but it's pretty obvious Mr. Adak is not your average middle school teacher. But is he a machine? We have to keep our minds open. The only thing we know is that he is not human. Humans don't have wires and microchips under their skin, Oliver reasons. Oliver is right that the Wi-Fi at my house really is better. So as soon as we're up in my room, we put that Wi-Fi to work. We don't have time to go through all 300,000 links for Adact, so we try to narrow down our searches by adding extra keywords. Adact plus Perkins, Adact plus Breitling, Adact plus human, Adact plus electronic, Adact plus machine. We spend hours clicking on side links and getting nowhere. Then I try a combination that no one has thought of. Adact plus teacher. The first link that comes up takes us to an article from Educator's Digest, summer of 2018. Department of Education shelves Adact project. According to the spokesperson, the Department of Education, while being given up its ambitious Adact project, the goal of the Adact, which stands for Artificially Intelligent Designated Android Classroom Teacher, was to place convincingly human robotic teachers in the classrooms across the country. Robotic. That's the word we've been dancing around ever since that periscope. Our teacher is a robot. A robot? Oliver nods so violently, I'm afraid his head might snap off and roll down the carpet. How could we miss it? Oh, I don't know, I retort. Maybe because real life isn't some Star Wars movie? But this is exactly what Mr. Adact, a convincingly human robot, is. If it wasn't for us, I'll bet nobody would have ever found out. According to the article, Adact units would be placed in test schools. Faculty and school employees would be informed, but the larger community, especially the students, would not know. Part of the experiment was to see if the robot teachers could pass for the real thing. No wonder he caught my spitball, Oliver breathes. I told you that was impossible, but he has superhuman speed now. And listen to this, I add in. Each Adak unit was to be accompanied by a Department of Education project engineer, I read. Perkins! I knew he couldn't be a student teacher. And if that explains why they live together, and why Perkins does all the driving, then I'm Monkey's uncle. That explains everything, I agree. Only, according to Education's Digest, Project Adak got scrapped back in 2018. So how come we've got a real Adak and his engineer in our homeroom? We keep reading. The article says that the Adaks were expected to be a little stiff and unnatural at first, but their built-in AI systems would learn from the people around them, teaching the units to become more human every day. The project was stopped because the AI technology was not advanced enough to respond to changing classroom situations and to meet the diverse needs of students. I frowned. When you think about it, that's kind of the thing Mr. Adax is best at. He trashed a whole classroom just so I'd understand ratios. The trivia kids thinks he's a genius because he knows all the answers. The field hockey girls would walk through fire for him. And even real oddballs like Stinky and Mia love him. Not a single teacher in this town has known what to do with Stinky since kindergarten. Mr. Adact has him eating out of the palm of his hand. That must be it, Oliver decides. Back in 2018, the AI wasn't good enough, so they had to cancel the project. But now it's better, so they started it back up. And we've got a teacher with a computer for a brain that always knows who to blame when things get scrawny. Screwy. I'm so sorry. Nathan comments, think about the prank with the cars. Mr. Adak figured it out because he had the whole internet inside his head. Oliver nods. That must be where he gets his song lyrics and his trivia. He's like a walking Google. It's kind of scary, I shiver. Our teacher has powers, like some Avenger. He's not so great, Oliver scoffs. Mr. Adak might have a super brain, but you know he doesn't have a sense of humor. If you can't find anything funny, then you're not smart. No AI is going to teach you that. So, what happens now? Who do we tell about this? Are you kidding? Haven't you heard that knowledge is power? We know something that nobody else does. We have got to protect that. Why? I squeak. Let's say Candy Audie somehow figures out that we were the ones who disappeared her precious trophy. We're dead, right? But not if we mention the big news. We're thinking of spreading around town there's a robot teacher at our school, and the principal's been hiding it from everyone. I nod. Now you've got us blackmailing the principal. My Oliver alert offers up a few half-hearted clangs, but this news about Mr. Adak makes everything else seem like small potatoes in comparison. Oliver grins. It probably won't come to that. Besides, maybe Brightling has another field hockey trophy in our future. Fat chance of that, I retort. We haven't been good since the 70s. Maybe not, Nate Oliver concedes. But this year, we've got something no other team has. A robot for a coach with a computer in his brain. So, the end of those two chapters, I want you to think about why would the Department of Education want robot teachers? Clearly, they had a couple of drawbacks, but they seem to have figured it out now. But, like, why?